Welcome to Cafe Grit. My name is Beth Campbell, and I am the author of Where the Hell is My Bacon?, a book about a corporate team that triumphed over shitty leadership with the help of fried pork. I open Cafe Grit as a place where you can join me in figuring out how to channel your grit and find your voice in the world, whatever that means for you. This is the place to go when you've got the hankering for purpose, the taste for fulfillment, and you're tired of living the rat race. Thanks for stopping in. Cafe Grit is now open for service. Hey everybody, welcome to Cafe Grit. I'm your host, Beth Campbell. This is a place to go when you've got a hankering for purpose, a taste for fulfillment, and you are tired of living the rat race. Well, folks, if you are watching me on video, you already know my secret today. If you're on audio, I'm so excited. You may remember, if you're one of my 12 listeners, that I have been lamenting several times about wanting to have somebody to talk to, guests who are funny and fun and open and transparent and intelligent. And today I have my good friend, Mike Goggin, joining us today, and we're going to talk about creativity. I'm so excited because creativity is one of my favorite things, and it's one of my favorite definitions of grit. So welcome, Mike, to the show. Great to have you from Arizona.
Thanks, Beth.
From the Southwest.
Yes, where it is still registering in the 90s, by the way. Yeah,
I
you
was
know
going to ask
me.
you. I decided this morning that we really don't have, we have a summer in Virginia, but we don't have we don't really have a fall, winter, spring. It's sort of like some wind fall. There's like a one, and you can never, I was talking to our mutual friend, Corey Joe, this morning. We both used to work with her, and she's in Colorado now. We were talking about how you can never put away any season of clothing. You can never put away. I will have long leggings, like one pair I'll just keep out in the summer just in case, and then in the winter I'll wear shorts sometimes because it'll get up into like the 60s sometimes. So you probably don't have quite that, the winter part of it, but what do you got for temperature?
Well, I mean,
90s, you said?
I mean, it's all relative, as I like to say. And I guess what I mean by that is that when it gets down to 60 degrees here, OMG, you would think that it is 40 below zero, the way people are all bundled up in their big, parka with the fur on it, and it's kind of funny, actually, to me. I will say, though, that my blood is starting to, I don't know what they call it, either thick or thin. I'm not quite sure what it is, but I can not handle the very low temperatures that I used to be able to handle. However, I still am 365 days of shorts.
Really?
And just to show you that dedication, Beth, sometimes I will put like my long underwear right all the way down, and I'll put my shorts over it because it's only in the morning, and then like around noon I'm like bacon. So I'll take the long underwear off and I'm still achieving my goal.
You know what, the struggle is real, Mike, because I was just, Corey Doe and I were just talking this morning about how she said, you know what, I called her a couple weeks ago, and it was in the morning, and it was -7 degrees. So for those folks who are listening who are in the UK, that's like a ton below zero. Like our zero is 32. So you can imagine. Or no, I'm sorry, it wasn't negative, it was just 7, but still 7 degrees. And then she had 81 before. So she said, I don't even know what to do. She said, I'm just gonna wear a summer outfit, and then I just have to put on a big coat because that's all you really can do. And I'm the same thing. I've got the flannel on right now, and I've got the shorts. But this morning I was like, it was like borderline. Do I put on long leggings to walk the dog? Because it was kind of like, I think I can deal with it. It was like upper 40s. And I mean, it's like, you really have to, the struggle is real. It drives me nuts, but not really, because I'll take this over a northern winter. I'd rather not have like a solid winter any day of the week. So.
Yeah. I think that I'm in the same place, although I actually loathe the summers here.
Yeah,
I am not in my happy place during the summers.
Like planes sometimes in Arizona because it's so.
Yeah, for some reason everybody knows that fact, right? It's like, yeah, I think it's
Because
117 degrees on the runway or something like that.
because when you told me that for the first time, I thought, are you shitting me? But it's absolutely true. You get so hot, you
Yep.
cannot see the planes. For a little background for the folks who are listening, Mike and I have known each other, I don't know, it's probably been close to 15 years now, because I was trying to think back when we first met, but we were colleagues, kind of. I was at a company and he was a vendor colleague, and then Mike worked for me and reported to me for a while as a contractor, and then we went to this fucking consulting firm that I shall call them, where we worked for a time. And which, if you follow the show, you've heard me talking about many times. And then and now we're just friends and kind of keep in touch that way. So I'm so happy you're here. We're going to talk about creativity today. Tell me a little bit about, I've talked a little bit, but tell me what kind of prompted you to, because you reached out to me, which I love. What kind of prompted you to reach out and want to talk about stuff?
Yeah, I was thinking about my struggles, right? And in my struggles with creativity and trying to get my thoughts from a thought into some kind of action plan, right? And my brain is just, it's odd to me. It really is, because I'll have these ideas and I just in the oddest places, and there's like nothing to grab and write it down. And when they come, they just start building on each other. It's, and I just sometimes I just get frustrated with it, but other times, I actually love it. The hardest part of it all is trying to figure out how I remember to somehow notate what my thought is.
Do you have a phone? Do you bring your phone with you when you're in these places where you're not accessible to whatever pen and paper or whatever? And have you thought about a tip for other people out there who might be listening? I mean, it's not ideal for me, because I am as one of our mutual friends used to call me, a fluid typer. So I like to just type really fast. I have a lot of thought like you. So I do the same thing, and I will just caveat this with it by saying that I do take notes on my phone, usually verbal, like I'll do an audio file, or I'll take a video of myself just to remind. I actually just did one this morning, and then I have so many of them that I just forget about them. So now that we're working it through in my mind, I'm thinking that maybe that's not the greatest tip to give you, because right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess in the interest of just tips, can you just tape something that or are you, of course, if you're in a position where it's not conducive to record, then that's always hard to like, hey, I'm in the checkout. Yeah. Oh my God, suddenly I've got the ma'am,
one moment while I record this thought.
Young man, could you just wait a second here while you're bringing those bananas up? I need to, but anyway. Well, so tell me what then, let's just kind of go back then. Tell me, I mean, what does creativity mean to you? I mean, how does your creativity manifest? Like, what are some of the things that you like to do, and why is it important to you? Why is creativity important? Because I don't think it's important to everybody.
Yeah, actually, several, I think, questions kind of stacked into there. And,
that's how I roll.
That's how you do roll. With me, it's been like this lifelong battle, I guess is the way I'll describe it, with creativity, because I always wanted to have a creative side. You know how the left brain, right brain, and I don't know which side is which, but what I really wanted is that balance. And I think one is analytical and one is creative, right?
I like to have a very analytical background too. So I could see where I was going to even ask you about, that. So what we can break that down, but yeah, go ahead. That makes sense.
Yeah. So, and what I find is that the analytical side, because, what I do for a living is technology, and really it's about, taking the analytic side of it, but the only way you can expose it is through creativity. Because that's the way other people, you have to pay attention to the way other people will absorb what it is that you're thinking about, right? You could be, how many people in our lives, engineers, are the smartest people we've ever met, yet they have a hard time really kind of, getting that idea or thought or whatever they're thinking into someone else's head, right? So it's difficult to do. And so there's that portion of it, but then there's also this other side, because it's not all about work, right? It's about I love to work with my hands, whether that's fixing my car, or creating some wood projects, furniture, and stuff like that. And it's just getting that creativity out of me. And the best way I can probably describe it is I'm a huge Pearl Jam fan, as you know, and Eddie Vedder had this audio book on Audible, right? It was I think it was Audible. anyways, he was just going through his kind of history and his creative process, and he kind of said something that resonated with me, and that was and he was talking about his kids and how his kids are creative, but his creativity was he had to create. He almost made it sound like it was a bad thing or a disease that he had, that when he's not creating, he doesn't feel like he's
Like a
whole.
compulsion or like an addiction or a compulsion, like I have to do it, otherwise something
Correct.
I'm gonna
Correct.
go.
Yeah, exactly. And I kind of, I mean, that's how I've kind of felt my whole life, not being super creative, on the woodworking or painting or drawing or writing. It's
Classical,
always,
traditional, yeah.
yeah. So it's always frustrated me, but I always feel the need that I have to create. The analytics side isn't much of a draw, but it's definitely that creativity side, even when it has to do with work, right? Trying to expose that. And then a conversation for possibly different time is confidence, right?
Yeah.
Huge confidence. Anybody
Yeah.
that's
What do you mean by
most
that?
people
Like confidence relates to creativity.
sharing your work. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, right. Whether I go out in the garage and I put together a shelf, right, and I designed it from scratch and I cut it and I, do everything I got to do to it, sharing that with someone, whether
Yeah.
it's going to be selling it, or giving it away, there's always that, hesitation that, are you going to, is that person
Are you going
going
to be
to like
judged?
that?
Yeah, they're going to like it. Are you going to, is your inner voice going to come in? Well, your inner voice probably already comes in and says, are you sure about that, Mike? I mean, it's not
Yeah.
perfect here. Yeah. I mean, I get that. I do. To some extent, I think I get that in some areas, like I'm right. And by the way, anybody who's listening, Mike is mentioned in both of my books that are out there. So just so you know, where our friendship level is and our colleague level, and the importance of bacon in Mike's life. But so for writing, I don't feel that way because I put shit out there all the time. I don't care. But other stuff
Right.
I do. Other stuff I don't. In fact, I won't sometimes don't even pursue, just because of that inner voice, the imposter syndrome. And so I totally get that.
Well, we'll go a little bit backwards, Beth, if you
Yeah.
don't mind for a moment, because your first book, right, Where the Hell's My Bacon, was in process of, yep, there it is. I mean, was in process for many years,
Yeah.
right? And so, and I know you were super busy during those years. Your job kind of took a lot of your time, but was there a part of you that didn't want to finish that book because you were afraid?
Oh, most definitely. Now, I mean, there were many levels of afraid. One being that I'm writing about a company, loosely based, not based on any real characters, but loosely based on instances that happen. So there was that, but yeah, I was for me it was perfection. So it was the pursuit of, which I think it kind of plays into this, right? It's control and it's perfection.
Right.
For me, it was the pursuit of perfection. I was so caught up in Well, there were two things: this pursuit of perfection and waiting for motivation. And so in the context of our conversation, perfection was probably what relates here. That I would go back and forth. I had like 3 chapters of 14 that ended up being in there done. And it took me 3 years. I kept going over and over. I can't move on until it's perfect. And then at some point, and it was actually, if you don't mind me talking about this in vague terms to protect the innocent, which would be you and me. There was a time at this fucking consulting firm where, when you were still there, where I thought my position was going to be eliminated for reasons that I didn't understand. And it was very distressing to me. I was not as woke as I am now. And that actually prompted me. It was a real lighting of a fire, that it got so bad that, and then you left. And then it was like, fuck, it was even worse. Not super worse. I mean, I didn't have like horrible boss. So boss, who was my boss after Mike, please don't, I'm talking about you. But just the, executive stuff was kind of ugly, but it was so bad that it lit a fire under me that I said, you know what, fuck it. And that's what prompted me to start and not waiting for motivation, just setting a timer and writing. But I had to move through that perfection and just say, screw it. You'll work on it later. Jodi Picoult has a great saying. You can, you might not, I'm looking at it right now. You might not write well every day, but you can always edit a bad page. You can't edit a blank page. And I had a lot of blank pages that I wasn't, and I think a lot of people, that's probably so part of what you're talking about, is that pursuit of perfection, and that, because that comes from fear, right? That fear of, I can't put this out there. This is me. This is my first book. No, my God. So yeah, totally.
Which is right. And that's what the confidence is, and perfection, good word to use here, right? Because that's us as individuals always thinking what we do isn't good enough. But for who the fuck, right? Is it good for us? Because if it is, then right, we put ourselves out. That's what we write. You can enjoy it or you cannot enjoy it. I mean, how many freaking bad books have we read over time?
Are you?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think that you're your own worst critic? Because I do. A lot, when you're talking about this stuff, I know that most of that, I mean, there's always going to be idiots outside, but I don't care about them. It's internal. It's my integrity. It's like, what am I putting out there? What do people, it is a fear of being judged, but I'm my own worst critic. So my perfection was me. It wasn't worrying about, oh, what if this person doesn't like the name I chose for them when it's like, it was no. So, and I
totally agree.
I told you I was going to burp during these podcasts, and I just did a silent one. So just hopefully you didn't even notice that, Mike. It was just
I didn't even notice this. Floated away.
the world of podcasting. Anyway, yeah, perfection, big topic. Well, it's very interesting.
So you and I talked.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm just going to adjust my chair.
So you and I talk.
You know how like they have a chair that you just start sinking because it's the hydraulics.
Oh, yes.
So anyway, yes, you and I, sorry.
So you and I talk because we both love to read, right? And I think we just had a conversation the other day back and forth about, what are you reading? You asked me. Well, I ended up, there you go, Stephen. Oh, you did get it. Did you have it?
We're going to talk about that later. Yeah, I just got it yesterday. So we'll talk about Undaunted Courage for those on audio. Undaunted Courage by Stephen Ambrose. We're going to talk about that a little bit in a few minutes.
Nice. I just picked up, I'd mentioned I was reading a Walter Isaacson book. I will not name that book because I know what it does to your face when I say it. But Walter Isaacson is a great biographer.
Oh, that's okay. This is the Elon Musk one?
That was the Elon Musk book.
I'm cool. He's not my worst person in the whole world. So
we could have a whole conversation about what I learned in that book about Musk, but we won't do that here.
Yeah.
Where I was heading is I've read Musk, and I've also read Isaacson's biography on Steve Jobs. It was the Steve Jobs biography that really showed me Ambrose or Walter Isaacson's really his process and the depth of it, and it was just a really great book. which is in step with Steve Jobs himself, and it was the same thing with like Elon Musk. But so I picked up another Walter Isaacson book about Leonardo da Vinci. Now,
Oh,
obviously, not living, but dead. You can imagine, his rigorous research in it. However, I was listening this morning on my walk, and it amazed me to hear that even someone like a Leonardo da Vinci had these same issues that you and I just talked about.
this
Just
brilliant
it was
painters, whatever, everything artist had self-doubt.
architects. I mean, you name engineer. I mean, you name it. But he had this perfection thing, right? That it had to be perfect before he would do or release it. And that's why so many of his paintings are not complete, because he just got to a certain point and he'd pick them up and he'd put them down, pick them up and put them down. And then finally he would just give up on them, because he also had, what they possibly think was like an ADD, right? So he was
Yeah.
always needed, to change directions. But that's why most of his paintings, or a lot of his paintings, were never finished, because it had to be perfect. And if it wasn't perfect, he didn't want it to go out the door.
Well, even the ones that are perfect, like Mona Lisa being, arguably the most famous and valuable painting. I don't know if you've ever been to Paris in the Louvre, but I mean, it's a great painting. It's not my genre, but the painting itself is fine, but it's literally like this big. I mean, it's like tiny. It's
I heard that.
Come on, perfection, Leonardo. Make that thing visible, because now they put it behind like, Coke bottle glass, and you're like 20 feet away. You can't even get close to it. So, but yeah, I guess that's comforting to know that somebody who is, one of perhaps the best well-known and most amazing artists in the world in history struggled with perfection. I mean, that's pretty deep. It doesn't make
Talk about feel good about myself.
right. Suddenly exactly. I'm feeling really confident.
And I think that
yeah.
I was going to say, I think the couple of things we've actually chatted about, the perfection, or the Jody quote there, which I didn't know it was attributed to her, but I definitely have heard that before. Right? Just the process, you just have to write. And I think you could probably talk a lot about that. I mean, it is November. I know it's National Novel Month.
It is.
I hear that you are picking that up again, and I know you've done it in the past.
I completed it once, and I've tried it many times. But yes, I think I'm going to accomplish my 50,000 shitty first draft, 50,000 words of a shitty first draft of a novel. Yes. So thanks for reminding me about that. That's a great example of not, because for those out there who don't know, National Novel Writing Month, aka NaNoWriMo, is during the month of November. Your goal is to write 50,000 words of just your shitty first draft of a novel. And some people write not fiction, nonfiction too. But it's the whole idea is just get the words out, get them out. Because that's really, I think that is a deterrent, back to your earlier point about perfection. Just starting is the hardest part for people. Or if you start and then you get caught up in, like I did, got caught up in the perfection, moving forward. And sometimes you just got to do it and not worry about the perfection. That's hard though. That's very hard. It's hard for me, for a lot of people. Inner voice, again, critic, worst critic.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that it is for me as well, right? I want to, kind of where I've found some success in my career, writing articles or white papers, or, authoring and giving presentations, even at the conference, the larger, forums, which is great, right? It's obviously I've been doing the same thing for pretty much 30 years. The confidence level in that area is pretty high. But, where I really have always wanted to go is in that writing, right? The actual creative side. And I love to write. I really do. And, I've got several works that I've got, just piecemealed, short stories. I am not a novelist. Don't know if I ever will be. I'm not saying no, but I'm not saying yes either. But just the, getting that process down, your writing process, your confidence, just many things that we've talked about, including where the ideas come from, right? Where your thoughts and creating that as all part of your process, which is, I'm sure there's probably tips and tricks from many folks, including yourself, on how to do that. But I'm sure ultimately it's probably an individual type thing, right? Do I write at the kitchen table? Do I write at the
Right.
coffee shop?
Yeah.
But the most important thing you said, I think, is the truth, and that is you just need to get something down on paper. Otherwise,
100%.
where
People get
you
caught up in the logistics and the equipment. I get this question about podcasting fairly regularly too. Like, how do I start? What kind of equipment? What's the best microphone? And I'm like, literally just use your phone. Do a Zoom call with your plug-in buds. Because people will get really caught up on where do I do it? Where do I write? That will come. You'll know I hate writing on a laptop. I have, probably because I come from a tech world. So I've got two big monitors here because I got a lot going on. But people write on paper and people write in different places. There are nomads. I don't know if I could do nomading because, again, I like to have big space. So my happy space is right here. But some people write on their phones. Some people write on small tablets. People write in certainly all different places. And people get hung up in that. Like, what do I use? How do I do? Get something that you can save your words and write it. You would not believe some of the shit. I have a couple of external hard drives that I've had for almost 20 years. And even that they have some data from earlier computers, like back when I was doing the Windows 95 crap and had to back up all the time because they were such shit. And so I will look up stuff and I'm like, did I really write like 16 pages of something in rich text format or in a note, like a notepad? But I did because that's what I had at the time. I mean, I started writing on an Apple IIe, writing in earnest. I had written a lot in my youth on paper, but once the tech world came around, I was on this Apple IIe and I found an old floppy. I was able to somehow find a floppy disk that had Word or Word Perfect at the time, I think it was. And so, yeah, I think people get really caught up in. That's another part of perfection, right? It's control and it's perfection. And it's also fear because that's procrastination, and procrastination really is stress avoidance. So I've done this myself in many cases where you have to have everything perfect before you start. And what I try to tell people, because I'm trying to teach myself and have been, don't wait until it's perfect. If you want to write. Who cares if it's a short novel? You know what? Short stuff is more popular now. Now don't write yourself a 300-page book. Nobody wants to read that unless it's phenomenal. I mean, look at all the fluff that's in Game of Thrones. I mean, it's a great tale, but it's like, oh my God, do I need like 2 pages of what they're eating at their feast? I mean, or 2 pages. So I think, for you, short stuff is great. 100 pages, perfect. Doesn't have to be big.
I tend to agree with you. I do like, my books, the large ones I struggle with, right? Because it's like at a certain point you just want to say, okay, what the hell happened? Just get to the end. That one took me a bit because my reading habit, right, only allowed me to read, so many pages a day or whatever. But I don't think I did tell you this. I always worried that to be a writer, you had to write a book like that one you just showed, a 500, 300 page book. And the author that showed me otherwise was Ernest Hemingway. Right. Yeah. I'm just, perusing through the bookstore, which is by far my favorite place to be, especially if it has a coffee shop in it. Then I'm right at home.
Yeah.
But I just like to look at the different books and pick them up and stuff like that. And it was like at the bargain bin at like Barnes and Noble or the bargain table. And I'm looking. And I found this, this book of of short stories by Hemingway. I'm like, what? I didn't know he wrote short stories. I mean, I had read other works from Hemingway, but they were the novels. They were the big, thick suckers.
Yeah.
Great. But, so I took that and I picked it up and I was able to kick out, short stories in maybe a day or a couple of days. And that's when I realized that, that's a completely acceptable,
Oh, yeah.
format. Yeah.
It's totally cyclical, maybe too, because I remember, I mean, Stephen King has written a number of novella or short story, which I loved because I mean, I love, when you have a favorite author, you'll read anything. But when I was a kid, I loved to read, I would seek out short story, like horror short stories or sci-fi short stories because I loved them. And then it kind of, migrated into the bigger novels. And that seemed to be the trend for a while. But because of, I think, ebooks, and I say this because I'm not an expert, but I've done a few webinars and just, kind of follow some people who have some thoughts. And especially now with ebooks coming out and with social media, nobody's attention is on, page. When I get to somebody and they've got more than, a few lines, even myself, sometimes I'm like, maybe that's too long. The attention span is really, they want shorter stories, or they're just as popular, or maybe even growing in popularity compared to the longer works. So whether it's fiction or nonfiction, poetry, whatever, there is a market for. I mean, you don't have to worry about like a publisher now saying, it's not really worth, it's only 50 pages. Amazon will print 50 pages. I'm about to do a print book of 50 pages. But not even 50 pages, 49 pages. So I think it's easier than ever. And I think the market is there for short stuff.
Yeah, it's come a long way. And I know you and I had chatted when your ebook came out, and the name of it is
From Blah to Badass.
From Blah to Badass.
The No Bullshit Guide to Channeling Your Leadership Grit. Also featuring a blurb about one of my favorite bosses, Mike Goggin.
I loved that read, right? Because of the content it had in it, right? And I just like your style of writing.
Thank you.
But also it was very nice to consume. Like you had said, right? It was 49 pages, you said, and I was able to. I don't like to read books that often digitally, but that one was perfect, right? And I think that was another conversation you and I had, or actually you had a good post on it on LinkedIn, I believe. That's the the digital book or the the actual book itself. And I've got several books that I've read on my iPad. I just don't like that feel, but I think that when I sit back and think about it a little bit, it's like, well, it depends, right? Can I sit down on my iPad and read 100-page book? Yeah, I can do that. Can I read, a 200-page book on my iPad? I probably wouldn't so much consume it like that. So it's, and like you had said, I think you said you're learning quite a bit about, publishing and stuff like that. And which is, again, is just super foreign. I have no idea what even the hell you're talking about when you talk about that stuff.
And in the interest of well, and I am, this I know I have people, and I don't know if they're listening, but I have people that do book covers and book formatting, and I know they're cringing when I say it. I've been trying to learn myself, but I just like doing it, and it's fun and it's easy. And right now I'm unemployed, so I'm not going to pay $1,000 for somebody to format my book for me. But in the interest of that pursuit of perfection, there's a lot of imperfection out there and still good reads. I mean, I find typos and shit. There are writers that I don't think are the greatest writers. And a lot of it's just your perspective and your preferences. Like I really like Scandinavian, Swedish, Norwegian types of authors because they're very detailed. And I tend to not like very staccato writing, but people write books that I think this is like not great writing at all. It's mediocre writing, and they're bestsellers. So if you've got a good enough story, so what prevents Mike Goggin from pursuing getting your short novels or poetry or whatever you have out and published? What is the obstacle for you?
Grit. Grit
Yeah,
is the solution, rather. It's not the obstacle. It's the solution.
yeah,
And that is to, listen, which is a skill, right? Listening is a skill to people like yourself, established authors. They have works out there. Well, I mean, you are, Beth. I mean, you've written several books. You also are an avid, social media contributor, which is significant, right? You put yourself out there. That's what it is. Maybe it's, not necessarily a short story or book, but it's you put yourself out there, which is always scared me a little bit.
yeah.
And I just need to get over that hurdle. And I think as I was thinking about it the other day, I need to write for myself, right? I mean, the one short story that I want to write actually is two short stories, are just near and dear to me. One is about, my relationship with, mountains and being, outdoors in those environments. And then the other one is, another passion of mine, which is fly fishing. And, my journey into fly fishing, right? And it's a story about, just taking my love for the, outdoors and the mountains, and then taking in this very technical form of fishing, which I've fished my whole life, but fly fishing is much different. And friends, an opportunity, because a friend of mine taught me how to do that. He pulled me out. He gave me everything I needed. So just taking that and just that writing is for me, right? And it's if
But it
other
will appeal
people.
to other people, though. That's the thing, is what you just described is exactly what people want these days. They don't want the best fly fisher in the world. I mean, some people will buy that shit because somebody's famous, but maybe they don't want the best fly fisher in the world to give me a technical document on how to fly fish. They want a guy who does it, learned it. He's not perfect. He may do things differently than maybe the really professional guy, but you have a story because you're talking about yourself and your friends, even whether it's fiction or it's just a memoir or a recount or an essay, a long essay. That's what people want. They want authenticity. They don't want the bullshit. That's why I started writing. Well, because I had a good story too, but that's why I continue to write things about bad leadership, because I think people are tired of listening to the CIO of some big company tell you how to be a good leader, and meanwhile they're shitty. They want somebody to say, look, no, let's call it out. Let's call it out, and then how can we be better, right? So, and I
Right,
think that's
right.
kind of what it's authenticity.
Yep, I love that term. I love that word, and I like it. And you're right. So it's a matter of just me, just doing it, writing. Get the sentences on a page, pull it out, and have the confidence. And I have taken steps in that direction, right? Uh, in my, I've been the sole breadwinner for our family, and so which means, and I had 5 kids, which means I was dead ass broke. I didn't have two nickels to rub together forever, right? But I had all these aspirations, and when I was learning tech back in the '90s, that's when the web started to come out. I was, interested in shit like that. But anyways, I'll try not to be so long-winded, but um, I wanted to create and have my own website and my own domain, right,
Yeah.
for the first time ever in my life. So I was able to accomplish that. But you know what? Nobody knows about it at all because I have, been concerned about putting it out there.
Yeah.
Is it the right, the colors and blah, blah, blah. So anyways, that is out there. And it has, I've been, doing my best to write blogs. Most of the blogs are kind of the books I read, right? And kind of not like a book review or anything like that, but just
Inspired by
why I enjoyed it.
I love that.
Exactly.
Not to put you in the spot, and we can clip this out, but if you want to share your website, I'm happy to put that in the notes, and if you want to share it here, feel free. Otherwise, I can remove this.
Okay.
Not ready. Think about it.
I'll send it to you. No, I have to do it.
Okay, good.
These are the things that I have to do
That's awesome.
because I want to drive it forward and get over this confidence thing. And that's exactly what that website and all the content in that website is going to help me do.
I love that because I actually had a question that I wrote just in because we were talking about creativity. And one of the things, because you and I, you even more so, but you and I, have our careers are in technology, right? So it's very analytical. And one of the questions I was going to ask you is how do you, reconcile finding creativity in that? But honestly, what you just said is you're writing for yourself. Maybe sometimes that includes stuff from your analytical life, but I don't know that I care. I never found a way to be creative a lot, pockets here and there in my actual work. I found the creativity outside of the work where I would, make up something as a timesheet reminder or something where I could create something fun, and put it out on a chat for the team or something. But I never really found, I don't find project management or team management I enjoy, but project management and business analysis and project delivery and stuff, I don't really find to be extremely creative. And I never really, and maybe there is somebody out there who's going to go, wait a minute. So I never really pursued that. And I often, I was thinking about this, I thought, well, maybe I should, but then, you know what? I guess I kind of did. I found that creativity in calling out bullshit leaders and executives and stuff. So, so I'm going to stop thinking about how to reconcile the analytic with the creativity. Maybe people do and maybe people don't, but I don't know that you have to or not. So
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point. But in my space, it is more technical in terms of configurations and presentation of information. So that's where I actually do get a lot of creative opportunities within our space. And
yeah.
Quite honestly, it freaking needs it because, boy, there hasn't been a lot of creativity in this space in a long time. And right now is a significant window of time in the the utility GIS space. And boy, I think I stand on the table and light my hair on fire just to get people to hear what I have to say. It's like, because change is needed, but nobody wants to change. And anyways, that's enough about work. But
chronic problem that I've talked about a lot of, just that feeling of not being heard, like we got to do this or do this differently, or here's an idea or a solution. And you can only be in so many conference rooms or conference calls or virtual calls, and you putting ideas together that are good, and if you don't do them, something's going to happen and it's not going to be good, and you get the old head nod, okay, all right, and then it just sort of gets brushed under the rug, and then it comes true, and you just go. I think that's where I ended up, is just I got tired of not being heard, and or only being heard when some other guy in the meeting 10 minutes after I would say something would be like, I want to go back to what Beth said. I think she had a great idea there. And okay. So, but I think that's like something that comes with age too, is I think, unfortunately, I know I've experienced a little bit of, getting to that point where people are like, okay, middle-aged woman, just stop. Oh, here's Beth complaining again. I remember hearing that one time. But anyway, wrapping up creativity. Anything else that you have on your mind that we want to explore? This has been like a great conversation.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, I have one other question for you.
Ask me.
Exploring your creative side, right? Have you found yourself getting overextended? And kind of what I mean is that you write a lot, right? You are active on social media a lot, but do you also get do you paint? Do you do woodworking? Do you crochet and sew and do all of these other things to let out the creativity in some way?
Such a great question, Mike. We could do a whole topic on Beth's history with creativity. I've written since I can remember. I still have a handwritten version of a poem, a long poem that I wrote in probably, I was probably 8 or 9. I learned to sew when I was 7 or 8 on an old treadle machine that like Little House on the Prairie, Caroline Ingalls would have used. It was
With
my
the
great
feet thing?
grandmother's. Yeah, right, where you have to pedal with your feet. And my mom's
Right, right, right.
and so I've done in my youth I did a lot of sewing, and I was a nanny for 6 years, and once both of the kids were in school, I would have a little bit of time where I would make these intricate doll costumes, like historical doll costumes and clothing and stuff. So yeah, all of the above. And then macrame is something that I want to pick back up because my mom taught me how to macrame back in the day. And I have all the stuff. This is another one of those like, well, you've got all the stuff. How much planning do you do before you start it? Probably I should just pull something out. Macrame, I've done acrylic painting, really liked that. Watercolor, but I got rid of all my paints because like you has sort of alluded to, there comes a point where there's so much noise, and now I kind of regret it because now I have the time where I could pick up painting, but I got rid of all my stuff and now I don't have any money to buy it again. But yeah, I've got a podcast. I'm working on a novel for NaNoWriMo. It's loosely based on my paranormal investigation. I've got a novel half done, loosely based on my mother's death from cancer. I've got 2 children's books ideas based on bacon, because why not? So yeah, I've got all this stuff and the social media, which, there's a lot of guilt in that I'm not out there as much. Should I be, instead of applying for jobs, should I be trying to run my own business? How could I monetize that? So I have business plan thing, like, was that something I could do? So yes, I'll like a lot, and probably 20 other things that I haven't even mentioned. Because as you're sort of, I think you're sort of going there, is I have always had continually a need to be creative. For me, it's aside from the writing, I don't know, I can't say, I was gonna say, I almost was gonna say it's like a physical hand thing, but really, and I guess writing is, and I guess speaking is too when you're podcasting, but I don't know, it's hard to explain, and probably for you too, like why I have this drive
Yep.
to be creative and create things. So what is creativity? Creating things, whatever they may be, things that are beautiful, that impact people, that make people emotional, maybe sometimes scare people, or just some affect them in some way that they remember you. That for me, that's what it kind of is. And or in some cases, it just, sewing was a necessity for me. If I didn't sew, I didn't get new clothes, because we had a lot of kids. So but yeah, what about you? Do you kind of feel, what else have you been involved in? And is this something that you've, since, how long have you had this sort of creative urge to get stuff out there?
Yeah, a long time, and my list is very similar, to yours.
You were a
Acrylic and
sewer?
oil, and pardon me.
For a sewer?
Oh yeah, I sew. Yeah,
Really?
absolutely.
Good for
Actually, I enjoy.
you.
I mean, I don't create anything. It's more of like you were saying. It's like
It's such
I'd
a
love
nice.
to learn more, but it's just cool to make something, right? I love making something or make something new again, right? Both are satisfying to me. But yeah, all 3 kinds of painting, right? Oil and acrylic and water painting and drawing and writing, woodworking. Let's see. I've got this great wood burning set that I got for Christmas a couple years ago that is just super cool. And I couldn't, it's like the Maserati of
Do
things.
you
So
find, the woodworking thing is very interesting to me, because
yeah,
it's not something, and I don't mean to make this a gender thing, but I know a lot of guys, my brother-in-law, my stepson, really into the woodworking. It's never been and I'm
hmm
sure that I know that there are women out there that do woodworking, but it just seems in my life I know a lot of men. Do you have other friends that are into the woodworking, and what do you find appealing about that?
I don't have too many friends that are into woodworking, especially nobody out here in Phoenix.
You have
That shit
trees.
doesn't exist.
You do have trees, yes.
Mesquite, all mesquite. Yeah. Um, And I think for me, what was appealing about it is just taking something that was just a flat, dimensional thing and making a piece of furniture out of it.
Yeah.
Um, quite a bit of it was out of kind of like sewing and a little bit out of necessity. Hey, we need some new shelves for the house. Well, I'll just go and, find some scrap lumber or whatever, because I was a carpenter when I got out of high school. So
Oh,
I
okay.
had, access to lumber and stuff like that. And that's
Yeah.
where it really kind of started. So we need some shelves here, and then that went into, making cabinets and, there's quite a few pieces around my house actually that I've made, probably 25 years ago
That's
that we
awesome.
still have. And so it's just like turning it into something and that's operable and useful. I enjoyed it. I don't really do it a lot anymore. I've always been confined with space. I never had a woodworking shop.
Hmm.
So like I'm trying to make, doll houses and this furniture right next to the bicycles and the, and the garage refrigerator and my, the toolboxes and stuff like that in the parked car. So I've never really had one of those ultimate
Struggle is real.
setups.
My brother-in-law is lives in California, but they're trying to buy a house out here in Virginia. And one of the things he's talked about is wanting to have a place where he can run his saw at 11 o'clock at night and the neighbors won't complain, right? So that's another thing too, is like how much can you really do your hammering, your sawing, your sanding, and sometimes the neighbors don't appreciate it.
Right.
So what else is anything else that you've done that you can think of that strikes you as like a creative? You done the painting? What's your favorite type of painting that you did?
I'd say probably landscape painting. I love landscapes. I drawing and painting of landscapes. And honestly, when I've got a piece, imagine that I've got a piece in the works for a year now of my wood burning that is also a landscape. And I don't know, I
Yeah.
guess that's just what I love. Because I like to be outdoors, right? So I
Yeah.
like to see those landscapes, and then for me, it's I don't give a shit anybody sees the work that I do in that area. I want my what I can see through my eyes and register in my head
Yeah.
and feel in my heart. I want it on the paper or on the wood,
Yeah.
and and I just I get frustrated because it just looks like a third grade
Well, it's like, it
watercolor.
never looks as, although many paintings do look amazing, but that's why I like when I take a picture of a sunset, I'm like, oh my God, this is the most amazing sunset I've ever seen in my whole life. And then I take a picture on my iPhone and it's like, but you do have a really strong nature element to you, what drives your creativity, which I think is awesome. I think it's probably not super uncommon, but I've just never really talked to because my creativity drive doesn't come from, I mean, of course I've been inspired by nature, but it mostly comes from, I don't know, dick bosses and stuff. I don't know. Anyway, Mike, it has been such a pleasure. I will tell you, so I wanted to bring this up. So Mike had recommended this Undaunted Courage by Stephen Ambrose, which is the tale, I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, the tale of Lewis and Clark, but really a lot more than what we thought about Lewis and Clark. And there's a big Jefferson element in here. My husband is a big Jefferson. He's got a little bit of a man crush on old TJ. So I would love for us to read this, both of us, and then get all three of us together for a podcast to talk through some of the stuff we uncover in here. So hopefully of course you're invited to come back anytime. But that's like that would be next on my list, is to get through this monstrous, I don't know, I don't even know how many pages. Well, it looks like half of it's an index, so that's good. At least it's not. But
Not quite
anyway,
half, Beth, but there's
um, Mike, always a pleasure. Love talking to you. You are welcome back anytime. This is awesome. I love talking about stuff like this. Creativity is so near and dear to me. I really appreciate your coming on and sharing some of your thoughts as well. So anytime you want to come back, please do. Is there anything Any final words?
No, just thank you very much for this great conversation. Always love riffing with Beth Ann Campbell. I think that was our best dynamic when we worked together.
Yeah.
And I can see that after years of us not working together, we still have
Right
this
back in
good
it. Yeah.
ability to go back and forth and I guess pick each other's brain, challenge each other,
Yeah.
and just talk about stuff that's interesting to us. And who
I
gives
love
a
it.
shit, right?
Yeah.
If anybody else doesn't care, but
Well, you know what? Sometimes it doesn't matter. Sometimes it is just all about us. But yeah, this is awesome. I will put Mike's website information in the show notes for anybody who's interested. Of course, you can always reach me on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram, Facebook threads. I think they're kind of all one and the same now. The Bean 67 with 2 N's, THEBEANN. And yeah, pull out your creative spirit, everybody out there. And also never forget, you are a fucking badass. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Take it easy. Thanks, Mike.
thanks, Beth.
Hey everybody, thank you for stopping by Cafe Grit, where the moxie is fresh, the passion cold brewed, and everything is served with a heaping side of mojo. For more Cafe Grit episodes, please check out bethancampbell.com/cafegrit. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider giving it a rating or review on YouTube, Buzzsprout, or your favorite streaming platform. I'll be forever grateful, and in return, I'll wish upon you copious amounts of bacon, your favorite hot beverage, and of course, pie. I'd love to connect and hear about your grit experiences as well. Please go to bethancampbell.com for links to all my social media. Cafe Grit is a product of Beth Ann Campbell, LLC, all rights reserved. Thanks again, and remember, you are a badass. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Take it easy.